Here's part 19 of my summary of the book of Exodus. God has almost finished telling Moses everything that Moses needs to know to prepare for God's presence to dwell amongst the Israelites. The last thing that's needed for the tabernacle is the fragrant incense, which is a special blend of fine spices. It's prohibited to be used by anyone else or anywhere else other than the altar of incense, which will be right outside of the most holy place. Then God tells Moses to tell the Israelites to observe God's Sabbath. Anyone who doesn't observe the Sabbath shall be put to death. And while that may seem extreme, the symbolism behind the Sabbath is the most important lesson that a child of God could ever learn. Sabbath rest is symbolic for not trusting in your own works for salvation. Trusting in God for salvation is what resting in God means. Those who worked on a Sabbath symbolize those who trust in their own works. It comes from a heart of disbelief, and it's evil. Psalm 62, 1 and 2 says, "Truly my soul finds rest in God. My salvation comes from him. Truly he is my rock and my salvation." Resting in God means your soul finds rest in God because you trust in God for the salvation of your soul. Hebrews 4:10 says, "Anyone who enters God's rest also rests from their works, just as God did from his." That means anyone whose soul finds rest in God for their salvation doesn't try to work their way to heaven. Hebrews 3:18 and 19 says, "To whom did God swear that they would never enter his rest, if not to those who disobeyed?" So we see that they were not able to enter because of their disbelief. Not being able to enter God's rest comes from a heart of disbelief. Colossians 2:16 says, "Don't let anyone judge you in regard to a Sabbath day." In the Old Testament, we receive symbolism. In the New Testament, we find out what it's symbolizing. It's no longer about literally refraining from work on a Sabbath. It's about putting your trust in God for salvation, which is what faith is. Faith is the only thing that saves us. In Numbers 15:32, we read about a man who gathered sticks on a Sabbath, and God commanded for him to be put to death. These people knew God's commands. Anybody who knows that disobeying God equals death, they have the arrogance to do it anyway, it's because they don't truly believe. They're operating out of a wicked heart of disbelief. At the end of the day, by the time Judgment Day gets here, anybody who has not put their faith in God will be punished with everlasting death. And that completes everything that's needed in order for God's presence to dwell amongst the Israelites. The Ark of the Covenant, the table, the lampstand, the tabernacle itself, the altar of burnt offering, the courtyard, the oil for the lampstand and the priestly garments, the priests themselves, the ceremony of consecration for the priests, the altar of incense, the atonement money, the basin for washing, the anointing oil, the incense, and the Sabbath. And finally, God gives Moses the 2 tablets of the covenant law, the tablets of stone inscribed by the finger of God. This happy moment won't last long. Moses and Joshua are getting ready to head back down the mountain, and they will discover something very disgusting.